Melanie Phillips is going to give us her thoughts right about now. I'm Tala Traveling Cat, your favorite Zionist prince. Let's get right into it.
My question is for Melanie. Mehdi, I think you're great as well, so thank you for everything.
Well, we know where your loyalties lie as you ask your question.
Long story short, I'm 19. I go to King's and I study religion, philosophy, and ethics. And I studied Judaism. I'm a Muslim, but I chose to study Judaism, and I read Arthur Koestler's The 13th Tribe of Israel. And he says that Ashkenazi Jews, they were European race that converted to Judaism.
Can we have the questions fast, please?
So my question is, do you think that there are some Jews living in Israel who are originally of European descent, not like you say, they were historically the most historical people that's ever lived in the land in Israel, or do you think that's just another lie as well?
So Melanie, if you can deal briefly with the first question, the history.
So I didn't actually understand the question. I'm so sorry. I didn't quite understand what you were talking about. Were you saying that some Jews are not Jews? Is that your point?
No, they're not are converted Europeans.
You were saying that Jews, they're the most they are the longest people who have lived there for the longest time historically, but some Jews have converted from European Christians to Jews. So actually they weren't the longest people that lived there because they used to live in Europe.
Okay.
So maybe Palestinians were the longest people that have lived there because they were living in Europe.
Okay, can we just have we need to get through quite a lot of answers.
I'm so sorry.
Short, quick answer for that.
The simple answer to your question is that the Jewish people are the only people for whom the land of Israel was ever their national kingdom, several hundred years before Islam was invented and the Arabs invaded. And that is the point I was making. They are the only people for whom Israel is their national kingdom. The fact that many Jews haven't lived there is self-evidently true, but that is not the point. The Jews are entitled to the land of Israel because that is their ancient historic homeland from which they were dispossessed by waves of colonial invaders and which they have got back from colonialism, and which some people think is actually that they should not be able to do that. That's the point I was making.
Okay, thanks for that. We're not...
She didn't tackle the whole, what this girl was going about was the racist Khuzarian theory. So, the theory has been disproven. I haven't read enough about it to be able to give you guys all the things off the top of my dome. I really do need to read more about it. But I'm also not an Ashkenazi Jew, so I don't feel like I need to be constantly defending Ashkenazi Jews. I think that's like an Ashkenazi Jewish thing that they need to deal with. Like I need to be an expert on Mizrahi Jewish history, somewhat Ethiopian Jewish history, because it really interests me. I do think that if people want to dispel the whole Khuzarian myth, it needs to be taken up by the Jews who had their diasporic experience in Europe. It's not my responsibility. Now, what I have to say in response to this is, okay, let's just say, by your virtue, there's a percentage of the Israeli population that was not originally Jewish and converted from European ancestry. No problem. Let's just say it's quite feasible. Same thing on the Mizrahi Jewish perspective. Even though, 70% of the state of Israel is made up by Mizrahi Jewish people like me, Jewish people who came from descendants of the Middle East. Most of the Ashkenazi Jewish diaspora lived outside of Israel. They live in other places. But most of the Mizrahi Jewish people, the 1 million descendants of the Mizrahi Jews that were kicked out of Lebanon and Syria and Somalia and Sudan and Egypt and Eritrea and all over the Middle East and North Africa and Morocco and Libya, they ended up in Israel because the Arabs made it such an inhospitable place for them. So are they also not allowed to live? So the question is, does that make them more Jewish than the Ashkenazis who converted from European ancestry? And the next question is, if there are Palestinians with Saudi DNA, which we know there are, and northern, Phoenician DNA, Syrian DNA, with the last name Halabi, and if there are Palestinians with the last names Maghrebi, which means they came from Morocco, or the last names Masri, which means they came from Egypt, does that mean they are less native to the land than those Ashkenazi Jews who converted from European ancestry? What I'm getting at is this point of racial hypocrisy. First of all, it's extremely racist to try to dictate who can live where based on DNA. You're never going to be able, especially in the Levant, you are literally never going to be able to get an answer that makes you happy. I did my DNA test. I know exactly what I am. I know I've been saying it for months. I am working on a very special video. I have to fine tune everything so it doesn't, make a issue for the wider Mizrahi population. And that's why I went to go on the ground and actually do some filming work on the ground to discover more of the history about it. But what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to try to dictate who can live in the Levant based on DNA, so hold on. If anybody has like Roman or Philistine or Greek or Persian DNA in them, all these people colonized and conquested. If they have Arab DNA, are they native? Because this wasn't an Arab country for a very long time. It wasn't an Arab land. Arabs came in here very recently and colonized the land. So the point is, how are you going to gauge who's more native? Is it strictly on percentages of DNA? So does that mean that we need to kick out all the Palestinians who don't? Like, there's communities of Palestinians known as Domari who all come from South Asia. There's a couple thousand of them, and they live in and around Jerusalem and the West Bank. They're known as the Domari Palestinians. They're the Gypsies. Look them up. I just met with them recently. There's also the Afro-Bedouins of southern Israel and the Afro-Gazans who both trace their DNA back to West Africa. Does that mean they're not allowed to live here? They live and die as Palestinians. They speak Arabic. They practice Islam. They have sheikhs and imams amongst them. Are they not allowed to live here based on their DNA? Because they have almost no Levantine DNA. Or are they allowed to live here because they're Muslims, according to you? That's always the question at the end of the day. Because if you try to gauge who gets to live in the Levant based on DNA, you're never going to get an answer that doesn't become racist. So I offer the alternative. Let's all live here under Jewish control. When you look back into history, there has never been a period of time where there was an independent, flourishing nation of people here besides the Kingdom of Israel. Literally, you cannot find it. I just went to the Israel Museum. I just toured through the whole history. I'm more well-versed on it than I was before. Philistines didn't have an independent nation. Canaanites didn't have an independent nation. Then it was Israelite. It went Philistine, Israelite, or Philistine, Canaanite, Israelite. And even Canaanite and Philistine involved some elements of Judaism. I mean, these were all esoterical things that were shared. So then you get to the Israelite kingdoms, and from there it's just colonization. It's empires who colonize. You never have an independent Palestine. You never have an independent Palestinian state. You never have an independent Arab state, especially not one that doesn't call back to Judaism. Don't believe me? Here's a coin from the 7th century when the Umayyad dynasty colonized Palestine. They made a coin right here that says on it, La ilaha illallah. On the back it says Muhammad Rasulullah. And what is the iconography right there? It is a menorah calling back to the Jewish people of the land. Even the Muslims, when they conquered, they never established this as a Jewish country. Don't believe me even more? Here's 2,000-year-old coin that says freedom to Zion from under the roads in Jerusalem. Why would it say that if there wasn't an occupation by a colonizing force? Sorry, your narrative doesn't work out. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you a long time. Goodbye, Klats. If you believe in my content and want to support me, just know your help is needed. There's a bunch of great ways to support me, being PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or joining my Patreon community down below. Patreon is the best way to support my channel, and you'll get a bunch of cool perks depending on what tier you join. Another great way to support me is by buying my merchandise on thetravelingclat.com. I regularly drop new merch designs like this beautiful hat, or this amazing shirt, where you can support the channel and get something cool for yourself. I also have an amazing Discord community with people from all over the world. Thank you so much for your support.